Yeah. Uh-huh. It's Con-crete University. Know before you enroll. Ending up in the penitentiary. Listen up to Dean XL, be free. And you will know before you go. Never have to see how prison can really be. Listen, learn, and practice consistency. This is prison literacy. Yeah. Ooh, oh, oh, ooh, oh, ooh, oh. Yeah, this is prison literacy. Yeah.
Welcome to Con-crete University, Lessons 101. I'm Dean XLB Free for this, but Daryl H.W. Lewis for those of you who know me. Today we'll be discussing the subject of crime game, the crime game and what crime is about, and we'll lead you to that. But before we get started, I would like to give us a few minutes to allow others, as we do before, to make their entries in. I want to apologize to anybody whose questions weren't answered in the beginning. We'll make sure that we get to those questions as soon as possible. Again, this is our third live stream, and we're working the best we can. If you can pay attention, if you've been following us from the first one to the next one, you can see there's been a few adjustments. I know that I've had a few comments and people say, get rid of the white screen, get rid of the white screen. The white screen will be, by the time we start our next one, there won't be this white screen back there. However, I'm just asking you to continue to work with us and continue to stay tuned. Stay tuned to the situation, because basically, I mean, this is about life saving. This is about helping others to not go to Con-crete University or not enroll themselves into prison, but also for those who do already have people that are incarcerated, some of the things that they could look out for and pay attention to that might help not only themselves to adjust to losing a loved one to this vicious system, but also it could help those who are inside. They could give information to those on the inside so they can know what to look for as we move on. So, as you can see, we now have microphones and shirts and stuff. So just bear with us. As we continue to grow, we hope that others continue to grow with us as well. So we're going to wait for some people to come in. I'd like to give a couple special thanks to most definitely my core unit, my family, those people that have helped me to get this off the ground. My sister Alexis, my cousin Eric Bronson, as well as all the rest of the Bronson family, and also Renee Rivera, who's like our one of our engineers who helps us to get this together with regards to the room and other things that are needed. So as we grow again, we hope that you'll continue to grow with us, and we'll get with this right after our intro music.
Yeah.
One of the issues also is being that some people are thinking that
Con-crete University.
just vibe
Know
with the music
before you
first.
enroll. Ending up in the penitentiary. Listen up to Dean XL, be free. And you will know before you go. Never have to see how prison can really be. Listen, learn, and practice consistency. This is prison literacy. Yeah. Ooh, oh, oh, ooh, oh, ooh, oh. Yeah, this is prison literacy. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and begin with this. We have an agenda. We'll try to make this a little bit more structured. Some of the comments that I've had throughout the week, with the followers as well as with those who just liked and paid attention to the show. One of the things was the first thing was about me smiling so much. I want to address that right now. First of all, I am very happy. I'm very, very happy and elated to be released from um, 12,975 days of incarceration. So, with that being the case, I don't want anyone to think that I'm mocking those who are still incarcerated, or that I'm not taking this situation very seriously. Because if I didn't take it seriously, I wouldn't be on here now trying to detour those who are possibly headed that way. One of the sayings that they say in prison is, I wouldn't risk this, I wouldn't wish this, um, I keep saying the worst situation, but I wouldn't allow my worst enemy to be a part of this. In other words, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And so for many years, I've said that because even my worst enemy is some person that I wouldn't want to even come there. Not because of, first of all, because I'm not just a vindictive person like that, but the conditions and the process of going through the penal system and living in the penal system and even leaving the penal system after is such a terrible situation that it's just like it's really pretty much like a curse. But we're going to figure out how to turn that curse into a blessing. because there's many things that can be done to help to enrich a person's life once they are forced to go to that place by some of their decisions or what have you. So again, the smiles that I have, the grins, or even some of the joking stuff that you might hear amongst the show is not to take lightly at all what's going on with regards to incarceration. In fact, I believe that more people should stay tuned and tune in because the way the world is going right now, there's possibility, like I said before, you can, end up in a prison cell just like that, not even being an intentional person, like I intend to do crime or what have you. It could just happen because the way the world is set up now, it seems as though, paying attention to it, I can't get too political on things, but we get into a place where incarceration is like on the list for people that don't fit into the ways of the system or whatever you think the system, whatever they think the system should be led like. So just be careful as we're out here. Another thing again was about the backdrop. People saying, "Hey man, you need to work on the backdrop." Please understand me. I think all questions, all comments, all concerns, anything that you have that could possibly help to make this thing better. Because I'll continue to reiterate, this isn't about me. This is not a me thing. It's not. I'm not on here for viewers and subscription and people like that. Try to make money off of this. This is about saving lives. This is about helping people. Of course, there are people, and we'll talk about this at the end. But of course, there, I would like for you to subscribe. I would like for you to share. I would like to do all the things that you on social media, so we can continue this thing to go. One of the things that I wanted to add to my agenda is a phrase of the day. So each week we'll give a phrase, and the purpose of the phrase is that maybe it can be something that clicks into your mind. So then when you are sharing verbally or in person or physically with the person, then maybe that quote might pop into your mind and give you the inkling to want to disperse it to someone else that might really truly need it. So as you've heard, the slogan for Con-crete University has been "Know before you enroll, in order not to enroll before you know." So basically, what the phrase for the day is "Know before you enroll." What I mean by that, again, is know before you enroll. If you have knowledge of a particular subject beforehand, then it gives you more options or more ranges to do things. A lot of young men, women, and people in in um, in environments or in play or headspaces sometimes feel they either have this or that. They have a left or a right. When a person is refused options, or a person doesn't have different ways of looking at things, if they only know white and black thinking, and have no middle thinking, or even like I said, other options, if they don't have that, then they'll just do one of the other things. So what we want to do right here, when I say know before you know all that there is to know about whatever it is that you're doing. It doesn't necessarily have to be crime. It could be any subject that you're making. If we're trying to travel to a specific place, I mean, any road can get you there if you don't know where you're exactly going. So know where you're trying to go, and once you know where you're trying to go, then you need to check the options. So the phrase of the day is know before you go, or know before you enroll. Either way, you can intertwine them. Know before you go, know before you enroll. Know about prison, know about the law, know about criminal activity even. Now, I know it may seem as though people would say, you're promoting crime, but I'm not promoting crime when I'm about to say what I'm about to say, because I've met so many men that said on the inside, if I had known that I was going to get this much time for this particular thing, then I wouldn't have done this, or I would have did it a different way. Again, it's not to promote criminal activity any kind of way, but it's to say maybe you should know whatever crime it is that you're doing, or maybe if you have a question mark if whether or not something is a crime, maybe you should find a law book. I mean, we have these search engines that can find anything that you need with regards to any subject. So know before you enroll. Know what you're getting into. So that's the phrase of the day. Know before you enroll. If you pay attention to the supplementals that are on the page, Con-crete University, and I will at the end give you all the links that you can go to find this. But if you go onto the links, of one of the last ones that we had on there, well, the time before that, we'll get to the Walmart one. But before that, we were talking about the crime game. We're talking about how the situations lead us to these places based on crime. Again, so I don't want to make a whole lecture type show, because that was one of the other comments that I got was, man, don't make it into a lecture. Make it kind of fun. Give us an understanding of what it is without stay serious. I have to find a balance of being serious and teaching, and being able to entertain as well as still teaching. Teaching, education, edutainment have to go together. So I'm trying to educate you and entertain you, but the seriousness of this whole thing is the most important to me. So when we talked about, if you looked at my supplemental reels, the last one was about me going to Walmart for the very first time after being released. from prison on May 20th, 1924, 2024. So it was on the 26th. I mean, when I was released 2 days later, myself and my beautiful daughter went to Walmart. So the reason why this was one of the things that I had to show is because I mean, many people know about Walmart. Some people call it Wally World. Some people protest it because they say that the things that they do are not always up to par or what have you. Some of their practices are incorrect, and some of the people that they may even give money to may be incorrect. However, when I was on the inside, I never had been to a Walmart. In 1988, I think the area in which I lived in, they had just built one, but before it could even be open, I was incarcerated. So all the stories that I would hear from men coming into prison, they said, "Man, you can do anything at Walmart." So one guy said, "Man, you can even meet your wife at Walmart. Walmart got it going on. Walmart got everything from A to Z." So while listening to those stories in my mind, I built up this thing. What is this Walmart? Because I had never even seen a hypermart or a supermart. I think Kmart was the number one spot as far as in the area that I live again to go to do these type of shoppings. So I hear about this wonderful place, Walmart. So people have bucket lists. Well, I don't have what's called a bucket list. My father said we're not calling it a bucket list, and I was like, well, you would put your thoughts inside of a bucket, so bucket of your brain. So why wouldn't you call it a bucket list? And then he hit me to the fact that a bucket list means the list of things that you want to do before you kick the bucket or before you die. And he said, we ain't talking about dying, we're talking about living. So what we call it is a life list. So on my life list, I was Walmart was one of the things that was on there because I never saw it. I saw all the commercials, but I never saw the inside of a Walmart. So when my daughter asked me when I first was released, what are some of the things that you want to do? Well, on my life list was going to Walmart. So to me, this was like maybe a child that's going to Disneyland or Disney World after doing so much time behind that wall. Anything, you can go to the mom and pop candy store. That might be something that's like really exciting to you because you've been cut off again of options. You haven't had, an experience to be able to do so many different things. So to have so many choices. So with that being the case, me and my daughter alone, we went to Walmart. I made a little small video out in the car of us saying that we're going to go to Walmart. We got to Walmart, and that was my experience. So again, as we go over and over and talk more about the mental health issues and the trauma, when I walked into the Walmart, if you pay attention to the video, I was excited to go. Okay, Walmart, and I kind of was humming one of Kendrick Lamar's songs. If you really listen to, I said Walmart, Walmart. They're not like us. But anyway, Walmart, Walmart. And so on the inside, when I went inside there, I looked and saw, so many people. So if you pay attention to the video, I say, man, a lot of people doing a lot of stuff. A lot of people doing a lot of stuff. In other words, there was a lot going on. There was people moving around, and it was really something that I wasn't used to. But one of the things that my daughter learned early on was to pay attention to my cues when I'm triggered by too many people being around too much stuff because I know it's hard and difficult for a person to understand. But if you've been in the military, you've been overseas, been on war prone situations or what have you, when you come back and stuff, that's what post traumatic stress is about. Whatever trauma you experience, it's relived. But the difference between being relived in like in a happy, joyous way, your body is telling you tense up, get ready for battle, be kind of, even though your mind is saying this is good. So what was happening with me at that moment, if you look, pay attention to the video again, and I really noticed it after my daughter showed it to me, was that even though I was looking around and watching stuff and had a smile on my face, basically my body was saying, get ready, because at any given time, someone could jump out on you, might do something to you, or what have you, because that's the combat mode that you had to be in while being incarcerated. So even though I'm smiling, even though I'm looking around and looking crazy, I'm kind of really very tense. And so when my daughter was asking me in the beginning, I was trying to get the pushing the cart. And so I saw the carts, but again, I'm not, like they say, it's like riding a bike. So I knew that what carts are for. I wasn't that oblivious or that, slow to not know what they're for. But I'm looking at those and I'm wondering, am I supposed to just go grab it and take it and push it through? I mean, how does this work? Because, in the past, you just grab them, but things have changed so much. So that's why she says, I got you, I got you. She grabbed the cart. So the whole thing with Walmart, we'll show some later supplemental of the actual full trip going through the Walmart. Because I mean, I got to a toilet paper section and you're seeing all this toilet paper, and you'll see in the video how in toilet paper, especially during COVID, toilet paper is a great big issue inside of corrections facilities. It's really an issue because some facilities you only get one roll. You get one roll, and then when you finish using that roll up, you have to go to the office in order to get another roll. You have to have the with the rollers on, the little brown pieces on the inside. if you don't have that, you may not even be able to get some toilet paper until you figure out a way to find one in the trash can or swindle somebody else out of it. So it's very, very important. Toilet paper is a situation, especially if you're living in a multi-man cell. If you're living in a cell with 4 or 5 other dudes, if somebody's got a snotty nose, he's running through the toilet paper and he wants, believe it or not, fights have been caused behind toilet paper. So you'll probably see that video later on in the week or next week, possibly. And and with that being the case, we'll move right on to some more stuff. So that's what that video was about. Seeing Walmart, seeing the toilet paper, seeing all the stuff that was going on. It was really great for me. I liked it a lot. You know, regard of what the political stances may be at this particular time. But Walmart to this day still is until, I got more conscious. But one of my very first places to go. And I don't think it's just because of going to buy stuff. It's just the fact that it's just so open, it's so big. There's lots of people there, and there's so many different things to see. So one of the things that when you're talking about people that let me see mic up a bit. I'm hearing your context, your comments as they come in. But one of the things about, people that are being released, we like to see things because you've seen the same things for so long and looked over and over at the same. Everything is usually the same. So seeing brand new stuff is like very exciting. So that is my supplemental for the day, talking about Walmart. If anybody has any comments about me seeing Walmart or being excited about Walmart, please feel free to ask. Why is it so exciting? I mean, I pretty much explained it, but you know, this is what you're up against. I mean, time changes, as we know, within 6 months, technology changes, things change. You could have a guy that goes in prison for just a year or maybe 6 months or maybe even 2 years and come out and have the same experience. Look at this. This is new. Look at this. This is new. So people have been asking to me to explain some of the stuff that seems so different and so new to me. Well, prior to me going to prison as well, one things I like to share is the cars. When I went inside the prison, okay, we had cars that rolled, you can use the electric button to roll up the windows and stuff. Now you have cars. I mean, I get in the cars now and I'm looking for the keys, and you have these fobs, as I'm told they're called. And I'm saying, what is this? Where's the key at? Why don't I get to stick the key into the ignition? I'm ready to stick the key in. And they even have cars now that once you start the car and put your foot on the gas pedal or whatever, it puts the gear selector in charge for you. I mean, puts the gear selector in the sector selection that you need for you. I mean, cars with cameras, watching all this stuff. So all these things are brand new to me. And for people that come out, whether they do 2 years or 20 years, it's just something that you have to be mindful of. I was in a friend. Here's a little small story that may be funny. I was with a friend of mine. He had a Tahoe, and so I'm inside of there. We go to a Subways, and we're about to get food. So he would always be upset with me about, man, why don't you take too long to get out the car? You got to get your phone. You got to do all this stuff. When you get there, just jump out the car and just go. So what he started doing, I'm not used to the chirp chirp. The last chirp chirp that I remember, prior to going to prison in 1988, was just an alarm for a car, chirp chirp. But we didn't have that to lock the doors, to start the engine, to do all these things. So anyway, I'm in the truck with him. He gets out, he goes inside. Now I'm watching him because the Subway has the window and he's getting his food made. Well, I'm sticking in the car. I'm sitting in the car. When he walked off, he chirp chirp. So the doors are locked and I'm inside because I was actually finishing a phone call. So while being in there, I'm thinking, hey man, are you gonna let me out the car? Because you locked the door. I remember you chirp chirp and locked the door. Can I get out? So I text him on the telephone. I said, hey man, are you gonna let me get something to eat? And he texts back, said, come on in here and get something. So I'm thinking to myself, you locked me in the truck. What do you mean? And so finally he came out, and when he opened the door and came in, he said, man, why didn't you just come in? What's the problem? I said, you hit the chirp chirp and you locked me in the car. He said, oh my God, Jesus. And he's not even a religious fellow like that. But he's like, Jesus, the button is right there. Just lift it up. And I was kind of like, at first, I was like, oh, this is crazy. All you have to do is just lift the button. And I could have got out of the car. But again, with new technology, I'm thinking chirp chirp means there's no way that I can get out because I did grab the handle and it didn't open like that. So I'm thinking, oh, I'm locked in. But all I had to do was just lift the lever, boop, and I could have gotten out. So it was something that was funny in the middle of it. We laughed, we thought that was funny and stuff. Well, he was kind of pissed off. He said, man, now you got to go in there. I got to wait on you to get your food. But the thing is, some of these things are so new, and to some people it's like very funny, like, oh, that's funny, and even to yourself it can be funny. But when you sit back and think about how all the times it changes, one of the things about prison too is you have to look at the world, whether it be on television, whether it be on sometimes they allow you to have tablets or whatever, even the newspaper, and you're watching this world continue to go and grow and move forward, and it's moving without you. So last week when we discussed arrested development, we got into it a bit, and I got a few comments and people discussing that with me. But arrested development is a very serious thing. Some people call it institutionalized when you're coming from that side to the outside, and we will get into that as more too. But your mind is saying, okay, let me be aware of what's going on. Let me see what's happening. But with these new gadgets and all these new little trinkets and little things that are going on, you get lost because your mind was still stuck back in 1988. In 1988, this was not a thing. So for me to be stuck in this right there, my thinking was, really, if I would have went back to 1988, I would have remembered just lift the dang lock button. But my mind was saying technology, push button, locked in. So be mindful when you have people that are coming out of prison settings and coming into your home and coming back into your families and coming into your lifestyle, coming into a relationship with you. You have to give them time because there's a whole lot of things that are that have working parts that they may not know. Sometimes I may do A, B, and C, and I'm trying to get X, Y, and Z, but I miss out all over the middle of it. I can know what the objective is. The objective is to get out of the car, but my mind went to something different because of the whole chirp chirp. So there's another like again, I started this by saying about the smiles and being happy. Being free, of course, is something to be very excited about. But when you talk about being free, parole, many of us that come out of prison, well, the majority of us come out of prison are on parole. So when you say, well, man, you should be happy that you're just out, you should be happy that you're not behind those bars again. Well, I'm here to tell you that when you have to live on parole again, it's something like it's like being in prison on the outside. Now, it's not as hard as some people I believe make it, but at the same time, making that adjustment to still go into a controlled environment to a free environment which still has control because there are many things that I can and cannot do because of me being on parole. And I'm not talking about illegal things. There's just certain things just like far as just like crossing the state line. I live in a twin city. So suppose you live in Kansas City, Kansas or Kansas City, Missouri, or you live in like, well, not St. Paul, Minneapolis. I can't use those because they're in the same state. But one of the things about parole is you can't just leave and go out of state without your parole people noticing. In fact, in some states, it's a 50-mile radius or maybe even a 30-mile radius, and that you have to stay within. So even though you're outside on the street and you have more choices, some of the brothers on the inside said, man, you want to go out to the streets, they got a bigger yard. Well, yes, they have a bigger yard, but it's still being watched, it's still being monitored. So that's another thing that maybe you should put in your toolbox to think about for those who are out there on the grind and those who want to be enrolled into Con-crete University by being in the crime. So we're going to get into the crime game because I think it's very important because a lot of times, even myself, when we get into my conviction or whatever, I knew that I was breaking the law, but I didn't know to what extent the law could be broken and how far I could be punished. So again, doing 35 and a half years for an accident or for something that I didn't think should warrant that, you know, again, one of the things that my grandmother used to always say, well, you're just mischievous. You're not really a bad person. You're not bad. You're not criminal like that. You're just mischievous. You make the bad decisions sometimes. Well, just being cute and just being mischievous and just doing things that you think are not detrimental, they could turn into something detrimental. I remember in high school, and this also happened in prison, but in high school, two guys were having a fist fight. And so in the process of this fist fight, one guy hit the other guy and he fell and hit his head on one of those parking curbs and he died. So you would think that just having a fist fight, who nobody thinks about getting a murder case and spending time in prison behind a fist fight. But I want to let you know that accidents, things can happen that quickly. So right now, I see that we got 5 viewers and we have five, like my shirt, 5 viewers right now and some comments. So we'll get into that as well as I get into what the crime game truly is about. And so again, this is over and over. One of the guys that I spoke with or whatever I spoke with through a person saying, man, don't get on there and start lecturing people. Don't lecture people and lecture people. And remember what I said last time, people don't care how much you know. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Please believe that all this is coming from love. I'm not just on here because I want to browbeat someone and tell them, hey, man, you didn't know this, you didn't know this, you didn't know this, you didn't know this. This comes from genuine care. So if I were to get into why, before we get into the crime game, get into basically why this whole thing started, this whole situation started, is because, and I think I mentioned it in the first live stream, is because I went back to the county jail after doing so much time in prison. I went back on a writ in order to try to, get an appeal to be released. And I was just having conversation with the young guys, and the young guys just didn't have an understanding of what this thing was about. One of the guys was about, hey, I'm going to play video games for the whole time I'm down. Just forget it. I'll just do 40 years and I'll just play video games. Well, to understand that there's no video games like that, that could be something that could set a person back. If you expect to play video games and then you get this little tablet that has these little small games, there's nothing like the games that you usually play with. Eventually, that 6, 7 months of doing that, that's over with. Now you got 39 more years to figure out what to do. So about the shirt, there's been some conversation about the shirt. This is the logo with the Con-crete University, the shirt put together and designed by, came from pretty much my mind, but my sister, I have to give her the credit for, putting it all together the way that she did. But these will be eventually someday, soon. We're getting more of those to be printed, and to be passed out because it's a conversation piece. The purpose of it is to get someone to see it and ask questions. There has to be more dialogue about the prison situation. Um, I just can't reiterate, and I can't iterate enough the fact that we're getting to a stage where lock them up and throw away the key is the order of the day. So if more people understood that are like the taxpaying citizens that don't want crime around them, and no one should really want crime around them. No one wants dangerous people around them. Even dangerous people don't like dangerous people around them. Trust me, I know because I lived in a place that was full of dangerous people. Dangerous people either link up with other dangerous people, but even when they do that, they still have to watch out for dangerous people. So for a person that's not dangerous, yeah, you want to lock them up and throw away the key. But if the people that want to lock people up and throw away the key truly, 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 truly know what's happening in there, then they may say, well, Wayne, this is cruel and unusual punishment. And if you go back into your Constitution of American stuff, there's an amendment that's against cruel and unusual punishment. Now, please, again, I must also continue to say that, we make the bad decisions to go into prison, then those are bad decisions that you made, and you have to live with those, the consequences. However, if you take an animal and you put an animal in a cage and you treat an animal like an animal, don't expect him to come out of the cage and be nothing but an animal. That's just not how that works. I mean, this is like nature. This is like natural stuff. So I guess one of the other reasons why I want to, and I'm so adamant about putting this out, is for those who are in corrections, for those who are in the government, there should be justice is punishment tempered with mercy. So you're saying, why would I be merciful on somebody that wasn't merciful to a victim? Well, the thing is, 85% of the people that are incarcerated are released back to the streets. There's a smaller portion of those who get life without parole or even the capital punishment, meaning the death penalty. So if you know there's opportunity for a person to come out of prison, why would you want that prison to stay in there amongst a bunch of animals, become an animal or even a better animal than they were before, and then move right next door to you? So again, this is about raising awareness to anyone who needs to be aware about the situation. So let's get into the lesson for the day. The lesson for the day is called the crime game enrollment. If you watch some of our reels prior to, the animated reels, we talked about the crime game, and I gave an entire listing as best as I could. See, one of the things that I always have to give a disclaimer about is there's certain words that can't be said. There's certain words and phrases that you can't put together for the social media purposes. So with that being the case, when you read down that list, it seems like a lot of those seem like harmless, like robbing a person of their personal property or taking stolen property. These are all felonies. So if you accept something from a person, just maybe even it could even be like on marketplace. So we look at marketplace. So this is a great place to trade. Well, if somebody puts something on marketplace and you get that particular item and that item was stolen, and then later on you're enjoying it not knowing that was stolen, and then you're apprehended or you're pulled over and they run the numbers on it, whatever, and find out it is stolen. You don't. I mean, you can go and say, well, I bought this from this person, and that might be the best thing to do. They're not to advocate snitching and everything, but we'll get into that word and get into that at a later date. But I'm saying what you don't know can hurt you. No, they say ignorance of the law is no defense. What you don't know can hurt you. So if you don't know what the situation is that you're going into, if you don't do that, then that's on you again, because the police, they say not possession is 9/10 of the law. So that means if you're possessing stolen goods, you can't just tell on the other person, say, well, that's the person, you are the one in possession of it. So again, the crime game enrollment, crime, we totally understand, and we have a grasp pretty much of politics. A lot of people say don't get into politics, but if you would really take a look at politics, politics governs everything. There's nothing that you can do, not even have copulation, that politics doesn't play a part of it. There's place situations where women can't do certain things with their bodies because politics plays a part of it. There's not any area of activity that you can think about that politics is not a part of. When we hear the term politics, usually what we think is Democrat, Republic, government. Let's do the legislation, executive branch, um, judicial branch. We think of that type of thing. Politics are even in your conversations. There are certain words and certain things like we're talking about now that I can't say over the air due to politics. When you're having a conversation, if you get into an argument with someone over, or whether it be over the telephone or out loud, and you're threatening that person, politics dictates that there's a law against that, and you can be fined or you can be put in prison for politics. So never forget everything that you can think of, any area of activity that you can think of, politics plays a part of it. Not on the grand scale, talking about U.S. Constitution, but everything, every single thing that you do, well, maybe not sneezing or blowing your nose or something. Maybe there's no politics there. Well, then again, they have things about noise ordinance. If you sneeze and cough too loud in specific places, especially after COVID, politics can dictate that you can be removed from that place or you can be sent, to the county jail for whatever the case may be. So know that politics plays a part. So now we're back to the crime game. We're talking about criminal activity. One thing that you need to understand when you're talking about the philosophy of crime or criminal injustice or criminal justice, any of those things, there's two different types of people that commit crimes. You have those that are called the criminal minded. These are the ones that they say are the outcasts of society. These are the ones that you have to, get rid of. But a criminal minded person who thinks crime all the time, crime is all in every one of their actions. They think crime, 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 crime. I used to give an example from this one guy that I used to know inside of prison. He was of the criminal mindset. And I told him one time, I said, hey, man, if you was to get out of prison, meet some woman who was to put you into a $1 million mansion, give you a bank account of $500,000 for yourself, buy you any kind of wardrobe, any clothing that you wanted, and give you two automobiles, you would still find a way to rob that person. And he looked at me and he said, you dang right, because somewhere kind of way, if they got all their stuff, they're getting over on me some kind of way. So a criminal minded person is always thinking crime, even in the best of situations. Even in there could be a cell phone laying on a table in a restaurant and they can see it. And the first thing that probably come to mind is to look around and see whose it is. And their thought is, bam, let me get that cellular phone. I'm going to take that and I can probably flip it. I can sell it. I can do whatever I can do, whatever. So that never comes to their mind that, again, we're talking about politics, that for taking that cellular phone off taking that cellular phone off that table that was unintended to turn into either a theft case or it could turn into, I mean, they have a thing called robbery by conversation, and we'll get into that some other time too. But anything that you do, if you're thinking crime, how can I come up? See, one thing about a true criminal, criminals are selfish, and I myself was considered one of those people, so I get it. But criminals are selfish. And not only they're selfish to other people that they do the crimes to, but they don't think about their families. They don't think about if I do get caught. See, another thing about a criminal is that's one of the things they do. They don't think about getting caught. Now, any person that commits crime, they don't want to get arrested. But if you don't even consider that, if you're so desensitized to the fact that you can say, I'm gonna go out here and do this crime and it's whatever happens, it's just whatever. If that's what your thinking is, then you may be a criminal. So the other type of person that we find when talking about crime and punishment or talking about crime is the crime doer. Some people are put into situations or into poor advantages or in places or arenas that they feel that they have to do specific crime. I'll give you an example. I mean, commit a crime. Like, okay, I'll give you two examples. So a person, they have a thing called involuntary manslaughter or manslaughter in the heat of passion. For a person, whether it be male or female, I don't want to make this all, masculine, gendered centered because there again, I'll always remember there are the crime rate for women being incarcerated is rising, rising, rising. So you can think that you're pretty, you can even think that you're pregnant, and you'll go before a judge for doing some kind of crime and everything, and they won't lock you up because you're female, or even because you're pregnant, or because you're a mother, or whatever, or you're a school teacher. You can think all those things and everything. When that hammer comes down, your personal self, they don't care about that personal stuff and everything. Did you do the crime? Did we convict you of the crime? It's time for you to go. That's how that works out. So so, with this being the case, an example of a person who does crime is suppose a person has a clean record, they're having no problems, they have a beautiful spouse or what have you, and they come home from lunch early and they catch their spouse in an act that's against the relationship of what their the rules of their relationship. So you know what I'm talking about. And in the heat of passion, that person grabs a weapon or whatever in order to break that up or whatever. This is what is considered a person who does crime. He's not a criminal person where he thinks I got to come up, but in the heat of passion, something so quickly that it took his mind to I must do something. It didn't think about crime like the other person. They didn't think, okay, this is a crime, but their intention wasn't necessarily like I'm going to break the law. It pretty much was like a snap situation. Another situation I'll give you, when I was sentenced once, actually I wasn't being sentenced, but I went to a sentencing because I was handcuffed to another guy who was being sentenced. When I went to his sentencing, I was sitting in the back and I probably wasn't even supposed to be in there. But he was a young man. I say he was a probably I was 20 years old at the time, so he probably was probably about 17, 16. Well, his situation was this. His father was never around. His mother was on crack because this is in the 1980s. So his mother was on drugs. Oh, sorry. His mother was on substance abuse, illegal substances. His mother's on illegal substance, and he had three sisters. So he was left with the three sisters. So what he did was dropped out of school and he went to sell controlled substances in order to pay for that. Now I'm not talking about some guy that was, as we call him, a baller. We're not talking about somebody that's out there getting it. Like, I'm hustling, I'm getting it and everything. We're talking about a young man that dropped out of school in order to sell illegal substances in order to take care of his three sisters. He could have allowed his sisters to go into the state custody and become wards of the state by having someone, take care of them through adoption agencies or whatever the case may be, foster homes, foster care. He could have done that, but his mind went to his options were in his mind, based on education or what have you. His options were go out here, get some quick money, and to take care of my three sisters. So to the powers that be, they were looking at saying, no, he probably had options. He should have stayed in school. Sometimes we must always remember, especially as those who like to do crime or into crime, every decision that you make affects those who are closest to you. I didn't think that me doing the crime that I did would have my family missing and waiting for me and wanting me to come home and spending money and making trips and travel. I didn't think all of that. I didn't think all of that because usually we don't think that type of thing. So when I say that the criminal minded people are selfish, it's not that they just say I'm not saying they don't because we have a Robin Hood syndrome where people will go do crime and they'll share the stuff that they give. I went out and boosted some clothes or whatever. I'm gonna make sure everybody in the neighborhood's got something. We understand that, but what I'm saying is, in the event that you are arrested, in the event that you crap out in the crime game, in the event that you get caught, in the event that you get busted, all those people that were there to support you in the beginning, now they have to support you in a whole different situation that's even worse than the one that you were probably in before. So let's get that straight. Just remember the selfishness of being a part of criminal activity. So back to the crime game. Wherever the hustle is, whatever the hustle is, you have to always ask yourself, is whatever the hustle is that I'm doing, whatever the money that I'm making, is it worth the time that I could possibly get for this? Because again, we don't think about, man, I'm gonna get crime. Everybody knows that when you're doing criminal activity, there's a risk involved. There's always so the game that we try to play is low risk, high gain. Low risk, high. How can I get the lowest amount of risk with the highest amount of gain? Well, still the risk, whether it's the 1% risk or not. The thing about the police are, the thing about the authorities are, the thing about law enforcement is they have to be right one time. You got to be right every time. And the time that you mess up and slip up or get caught slipping or whatever, that one time is all it takes. It's just kind of like when you copulate when you're into a copulation type of relationship. It don't take 4 or 5. You don't get 4 or 5 tryouts or do overs or whatever. It only takes one time. So the person is able to make their mind say, I don't care about that one slip up. I don't care about that one time. I'm gonna go ahead and go for it. That works out many times for people that they've got people that have been hustlers that have retired hustlers. I'm not saying that that's not the case, but is it necessarily the right thing? Because one thing about being a hustler or a street person, it doesn't even have to be about money involved. Doing whatever crime that is that you could find yourself into. What's the retirement plan like? What's the social security like when you put into that? What's about the 401k? I mean, what's the tax shelter? What's happening with that? What happens at the end of retirement after being a criminal? What do you get? I was told by an old man years ago. He said, out there doing them crimes and being criminals, you got pretty much, two options. Either you're gonna make it to the grave, or you're gonna make it to the prison. You're gonna make it to the grave, or you're gonna make it to the prison. Now there is rare. There are forms that people that do make it. There's a third option. Sometimes people do make it. But if we were to try to take a statistic, and I don't know if Chat GPT or who else can do that and stuff, how many people commit crimes and get away and live the longevity as criminals versus those who get arrested, I'm sure, I'm willing to bet, my life on the fact that there's more people that, well, I don't want to bet my life on it. But anyway, there are probably more people out there that have gotten arrested doing crimes, and I'm talking about real crime. I'm talking about the criminal minded, those whose lifestyle is criminality. I'm not talking about the shoplifter. I'm not talking about the person who pumps gas and drives off. I'm not talking about those little petty. I'm talking about the people who have a mindset where this is my lifestyle. This is what I'm going to do every single day. I'm going to find some kind of way to come up every single day in an illegal way. So if we were to do a poll on that, I'm pretty much sure that the people that live those type of lifestyles, they end up in a box sometime. Even if it's for months or for the weekend, they end up in the box. So another thing I want to add is I spoke to a young man while I was incarcerated too, and he told me, I've been, selling legal substance all my life. This is all my family knows. I don't know nothing other than this. This is how my family gets down. So I pretty much felt like I had to do it. So I asked him, I said, well, and again, it's not a judgment on anything. We get into a type of thinking where we say, man, don't the Bible says judge lest ye be judged. Don't judge people. Well, later on, as we go further down into the lessons and stuff, you have to make judgment calls on everything. And if you make a judgment call and there's someone that you care about, whether it's somebody close to you or not, and you want to speak to them and say, maybe you want to look at this, that's not necessarily judging. So the judge, well, it is actually judging, but the judging part comes with the condemnation. Can you judge someone fairly and then give them the information that they need to probably make a better decision for themselves without condemning them? So if I make judgment calls on this program, if I say something that seems like this dude is being real judgy, he's trying to tell us what don't to do. I'm not trying to tell anyone anything. These are all suggestions. If you choose not to use that, if you choose, you can accept it or reject it. If you choose not to use the things that I'm saying, that's fine. But trust and believe it's not a judgment call. But back to this one guy before I get to these comments. One about this one guy. So he said that his family raised him in that type of environment, and it was all he knew how to do, and he didn't think there was anything wrong with that. So my question to him was, well, when the police show up, do you run? Do you take off running when the police show up when you're doing the thing that you do? And he said, yeah, well, man. So apparently that's showing that there's something wrong. It might not be wrong in your eyes, but for the powers that be, it's incorrect. So we thought about that more. So the next thing was, how much time did you get sentenced? So this young man got 25 years in prison for selling illegal substances. So the next question was, well, how much money did you think that you made? If you was to put out a monthly budget of how much money you made, how long did you do this? He said, I was only in the game about 2 years. So through them 2 years, how much money you made? So as we get to rounding out and thinking this thing through, he said maybe about close to 100,000, about $85,000, $87,000, something. We kind of calculated it. So with that being the case, so $87,000 was $87,000 worth 25 years, mandatory 25 years in prison. I mean, this is not something that I can ask for myself. I mean, I can say it's either right or wrong for either way. It's right and wrong is like relative. It's up to your decision, your perspective. But I'm saying $85,000, most of which you probably had to spend in fines when you had to pay a lawyer or whatever the case may be. Was it worth 25 years? Because trust and believe, as we move further into this and try to understand what prison really is about, the ups and downs, the psychological effects, and everything, you might want to rethink that $85,000. Um, they say this is coming from one of my relatives, and it's saying they say you on 2 days. The day you go in, okay. They say the day that you go in and the day that you come out. What would you say to that? So basically, what he's asking is, they say the two most important days of the prison career is the day that you go in and the day that you come out. I've heard this saying. I've even probably said it a couple times myself, but I beg to differ, because every single day in there has to be something that's important. Because if your life is just about, and this is twofold. If your life is just about trying to hurry up and do the time and get out, yes, the day that you went in, you'll remember that date, and then you'll mark it on your calendar. You mark it on your calendar, and then the day that you get out. So those will be the two most important days. But for a person that doesn't want to experience that anymore, I would have to beg to differ again. Every single day is going to have to be an important day. You have to live intentionally, whether it's be on inside the streets or on the outside the streets. And again, I'm not a pillar of righteousness. I'm not a person that knows everything. I'm not a person that does that myself. So I'm reminding you as I remind myself, every single day that you're incarcerated, you have to make that be a day. Now, don't get me wrong, there's certain milestones that you might want to reach. For instance, I dropped out of high school. And so when I got into the county jail, one of the things that my mother would always encourage, she said, well, why are you in there? You might as well get your GED. And I recommend that for anybody. Not that you necessarily, and well, it is necessary these days to have, the GED or to have a diploma, but the encouragement that you get for yourself and the aspiration that you can grow. Once I saw that I could take that test by myself and pass that, my next thing was, what can I do more? Is there anything else? Maybe this book stuff ain't so bad. Maybe I can learn something and continue to move on. So back to answering that question, every day should be an important day for you. You have to set goals for yourself, even inside of there. Now, one of the analogies I use is being in prison is kind of like for those who are trying to actually do better. Sometimes it gets like a gerbil or a rat on that wheel. You just keep spinning back and forth, because you see yourself progressing, you're moving, but you're really not going nowhere because of that wall of them steel bars. So every day has to be something that's a day. I mean, every day above ground, whether you're on the inside or outside, it should be some kind of milestone. This is something to be important. However, I don't really go and subscribe to that saying that the only 2 days you should be, concerned about is the day that you go in and the day you go out. Every day should be a concern. Says those scrap the film guru, one of my brothers. He says those 2 days are liable to be the same if you do it like that. You come out the same way you went in, and that's true, and that's what I'm saying. If you come in and your whole thing is just to get my bid over with, those days will be the same. I went in and I came out, and then you come out into a world that's different, or come into situations that you didn't prepare yourself for. And there's another wise man that used to always tell me, practice prepared readiness. We always say in the streets and everything, you got to stay ready so you don't get how to get stay ready so you don't got to get ready. When it's time to go on stage, you're supposed to be ready to go on stage. Well, again, Con-crete University. The university part is preparing your mind, practicing prepared readiness. If you listen to the very first animated reel that we put out, there's a part on there where I'm saying I'm running down my credentials, my study hours. Again, it wasn't for you to say, look at who I am, look what I did. It's about saying that I had to use my mind to prepare to get to the point that I am now. So that's to be part of your doing time. My father used to ask me, I remember he asked me when I first, one of the times when I called, in my initial days, he said, are you serving time or is time serving you? So when he said that, I kind of thought it was kind of that was kind of silly. What do you mean I'm serving time? What do you mean? So basically, what he meant by that, am I serving my time? Meaning I'm just in there living, doing the time, whatever, or is my time serving you, serving me? Meaning, was I you doing things that make that time count for something? Was I making that time count? Because again, like we spoke last time, is you can go to prison and do absolutely nothing. If you want to find a place, if you just don't want to never do nothing, you absolutely can go in there and do nothing. So the place that you can find the reels, the place that you can find me on Facebook, TikTok, or YouTube. I mean, we should start putting it on the screen. And actually, if you plug into one, it'll probably send you to the other ones. But on Facebook.com/, Con-crete University, and that's spelled with all small C's. I mean, all small C's, all small caps. Facebook.com/, Con-crete University. On TikTok, it would be TikTok.com/ at Con-crete University. Now it's a little different on YouTube because it's YouTube.com/ at Con dash CRETE. So that's Con-crete with the capital Y, I mean capital U. So the capital C for con and the capital U for university. UNIVERST, I mean SITY. So again, Con-crete University, Con-crete University. That's on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. So as we close out, let's see a couple of more of these comments. And I have to do these comments because this is keeping us interactive. I have so many people that have so many questions, and I'm thankful that for the viewers that we have, that the questions are coming in, because not only does it help me to stay centered on what it is that I'm trying to do, it also helps us to shows me that this is working because we're being interactive. So to finish off the comments, What's a rule you lived by that kept you grounded? Every day is a day closer to going home. Every day is a day closer to going home. Yesterday, I had to do a mental health evaluation for disability. So we'll get into that maybe later on or what have you, based on my post traumatic stress disorder. In that interview, the lady asked me, she said, well, did you ever consider basically offing yourself? Did you ever consider unaliving yourself? And so when I thought about that, of course, that thought has came to my mind, like it's probably come to many people's mind when you get into a state of hopelessness, whether it's on the inside or out. So there's like two occasions where I thought that, but eventually, I mean, within less than a minute or so, I erased it. I got it out. But the reason that I was thinking those things is because it wasn't that I was worried about doing the time. Because I mean, in order to do time, all I got to do is wake up. Anybody can do time. They say, well, man, you ain't hard enough to do time. All you gotta do is wake it down. Your condition or the way that you do the time. If you want to do easy time, then that's some people can't get that right. And then some people, just have to go into protective custody or whatever. So I'm not saying that everybody can do time. No one that likes freedom should be happy that they can do time. So with that being the case, the thoughts that I had were about, well, dang, if I was just to off myself, then maybe my family wouldn't have to worry so much. They would have to spend so much money to come visit me in these far away places. Or they don't have to, if need be, send me money for commissary or canteen. They don't have to pay for those phone calls. They don't have to. So I was thinking more about them. After being selfish, I started to say, well, maybe, if I wasn't here, I wouldn't have to do that. So when you're asking me about what kept me grounded, I kept telling myself over and over, even on those days when I was hopeless, if you get through this day, you're just one more day closer to home. One more day closer to home. Know before you enroll was the phrase of the day. Know before you enroll. You have to know. You have to know. You have to know basically who you are and what you can handle. Know who you are and what you can handle. Because when you get to that place, they used to say you just went from the fire, from the frying pan to the fire. That place will make that, it will check your metal. In other words, it will make you build your armor stronger. It will. And I'm not necessarily talking about being a gladiator, going out in the gladiator field to do battle like that. I'm talking about mentally. It does take a mentally strong person, because you have to realize that they have psych wards inside of prisons. So there's some men that go in there strong. They could be some of the toughest dudes out there on the street. But when you get into that mindset and get into that, or if you can't get into that mindset, there's men in there go crazy. They have a thing called the pill line. The pill line is where you go to get medication. Now, the majority of those people that are in that pill line, well, many of them in there because they may have diabetes, they have regimens that they have to take in order to stay physically healthy. But the majority of those people, for anyone that's being incarcerated, you can ask them, about this. That pill line is full of people who are going over there for psychotropics. Many people are going over there for mental health um, medications to keep themselves right. Now, some of them may go over there because they fake. They try to use the pills in order to get high with. But a lot of those people over there are trying to find some kind of balance or some kind of way to make it through that situation, day by day. So to answer the question again, to finish, with that, the rule that I live by was every day is a day closer. I mean, of course, I've had many mantras. I've had many, things that I had to use to help me get through that. But one of the ones that just to come off the top of my head was, all right, you made it to one more 24 hours. You got it. Let's get ready for the next one. Let's go and lock in and get this next one done. So you can find the reels. I gave that already. What's the tool versus the couch as the way you can do time? You would have to qualify that question. I don't really understand that question, and maybe you can punch it in within the next few minutes, and I can try to answer it again from Scrap the Film Guru. But I don't got it. Okay, here's one right here. Another primary day for me in serving time was when I realized that it's not the walls or the bars that imprison me, but my mind, my attitude about the challenge, and my attitude about the challenge. Yes, definitely. That came from one of my good brothers, brother artist Swaffer Jr. As you can see, shouts out to him down there in Louisiana. I mean, he's been a great inspiration for me. And someday I was talking to my cousin who's on the team, and I was telling him about how me and this brother met. As we go further into the line of conversation, I believe that there's something that you'll get out of the conversation. I mean, the conversation about how me and this brother met. But anyway, basically what he's asking was realizing that When you realize the day that you realize that it's just not about you being locked up, physically, that it's about being locked up mentally. And that's again what we spoke about before about the arrested development. When you understand that, I think things start to get, a little more easier because a lot of times when you're incarcerated, you fight against the fact that you're locked up. You have dudes that cry and complain all the time. And there was a period of time when I was that dude. I shouldn't be in here. They shouldn't have locked me up for this. I got to get out of here. This is wrong. I've been incarcerated. I've been falsely accused. And you go through that and you go through that and you go through that. Well, some people never get out of that stage. All they do is fuss, fight, and complain, but never once go to the law library to try to figure out what they can do to get the justice from the crime that they justice for what they did. There's even men, as I've said before, that are incarcerated that had nothing to do with the crime. There's many. There's lists of nothing to do with the crime. So one of the things that the officers will say, well, everybody in here is not guilty. Everybody in here is not guilty. Everybody says that they're not guilty. Everybody thinks that they're innocent. So I know y'all, you guys are innocent, and they play that little game. But your attitude has to change. You have to realize, okay, here's where I am. Whether I did this or did not do this, I'm here. How do I move forward? And that's again when I'm saying every day is a day step home, a step closer to going home. What do you do? So you can keep your mindset locked up into that, because there's period of, years where my whole life was about what's going on in prison. Even now I get people to say, don't nobody don't care about all that prison stuff, man. Nobody care about that. You need to find a different topic to talk about. Maybe you need to talk about cooking or something like that, but they might care about that. But trust and believe you will care once it's time for you to care. And it doesn't have to mean you. Maybe you should get the information for someone else that you may know that you may care about that could be led down this way. So again, your attitude. If you have an attitude where I don't give a care, you will go into a place where they truly don't give a care. And so you get to thinking, well, once I do get inside of there, I'll I will find myself, a good little job and everything. I'll work, save up some money, send home to my children. Everything will be cool, whatever. But really, in order to do that, you still have to have the mental capacity to deal with those, whether it be officer, inmate, that don't want you to have that. There's always, we use the term hater a lot over and over and over again. Trust and believe. If you ever wanted to be in a place where there's so-called haters and everything, prison is the place to find that. But the difference between having those on the streets, the difference from the ones that do little diss chat tracks and have these little Facebook warriors and these little social media warriors. When you're on the inside, you can't escape your enemies. You can't get away from the haters unless you move to another block or go to protective custody, be isolated and segregation away from everybody. They're everywhere. You can't run from your enemies. But when you really truly find out, like the brother said, when you find out that you are your biggest enemy, when you are the person that's causing the most of the conflicts, whether it be through you being not being able to put out your spiritual aura, your happy aura that reflects, all of the hate. When you until you find that out, it'll be harder to do time. The prison becomes clear when your family goes through whatever, and there's absolutely nothing you can do to help them or protect them. Yes, and this will be a reoccurring thing as well. One of the roughest things for me, while incarcerated was there was a situation that happened to one of my really dear loved ones. I'm talking about a really loved one. I don't know if my daughter, excuse me, she wants me. But anyway, I don't know if she wants me to put that out there. I won't, but something, drastic in my eyes happened to her. And I was so goddamn frustrated. Now, one thing about, I would have wanted to punch the bars or but one thing about prison, everything is hard. The bars are steel, the tables are steel, the things made out of iron, whatever. So what I've learned is that the bars and steels are undefeated. You can punch them bars and walls and kick them as hard as you want to. I've never seen any man. I've seen some real thoroughbred, like, rough people. Ain't nobody beat them bars hitting it. But to get back to the point was I couldn't reach outside of those bars to hug and protect my child. I couldn't reach outside the bars to comfort him. And I couldn't reach outside the bars to do anything that I may have thought to whoever it was that enacted hurt and harm on her. So that's another thing that we must remember. When once you go to that place, you can't really help your family. I even had a guy that had like over $15,000 on his books because he worked a minimum wage job. His mother passed away. They needed $5,000 in the family to take care of the funeral expenses for his mother. You know what ended up happening? The institution basically told him, you can only send $300 a month home. You can send home $300 a month. So I'm trying to put my mother into where she's supposed to be. And you telling me I got to send it in increments of $300. So trust and believe. If you don't like being controlled, if you don't like being watched, prison is not the place for you. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for tuning in. And I hope that you got something from whatever it was that was said. And if you didn't, it's not a fault of your own. It's probably a fault of mine. People say I talk too fast, but my question is, are you listening too slow? So again, could you please also look at uh, Nasha's Elegant Transport Services? It's one of my relatives who's doing a great thing. If you pay attention to my page, he's on there. But we're just trying to do this thing. And again, it's not just about, myself and just about my family and everything. The purpose of this is to help others. Each one, teach one, reach one. No one truly knows how much you care. I mean, how much you know until they know how much you care. So care for somebody by helping them to get out of an extreme situation. I think that about covers it. Know before you enroll. Anything that you're about to do, whether it's dating a person or whatever the case may, getting a job, whatever it is, you should always know before you enroll and know before you go. Do the research. So this is about research, and do the research to understand what you're getting yourself into before you get yourself into it. Once again, the prisons are the easiest places to get into, but they're the hardest places to get out of. I'm Dean XL Be Free, Daryl H.W. Lewis, and I hope that you got something from this. And we pray that you will tune in, subscribe, share, and send comments, because this is one of the things that helps us to keep on doing what it is that we're doing. So I will end with this. Thank you very much, and and hope to see you soon. Well, I had some little outro music, but right now I'm not being able to pull it up, but it will come. Thank you very much for tuning in. I know I have some comments about this later, but it's fine.
It's Con-crete University. Before you enroll, ended up in the penitentiary. Listen up to Dean XL. Be free, be free. And you will know before you go. Never have to see how prison can really be. Listen, learn and practice consistency.